Hey everybody, welcome to Philosophy on the Couch. I am your host, Jordan.
And I'm your host, Ryan, and we've got a special guest with us in this episode, Joe Foreman. He's here because he's an expert in some of the topics we're going to talk about. Some of those things today are going to be SpongeBob, where is the restroom in the wild? Is the world more dangerous than it used to be? And Would You Rather Tick Edition.
Let's get it.
Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Philosophy on the Couch. That's right, we self-sponsor, but we're looking for someone else. Maybe you.
All right, awesome, you guys. Joe, Jordan, Philosophy on the Couch, episode 4. How was your week?
Would you like to start, Joe?
My week has been great. Just basically working and hanging out with my beautiful wife.
Awesome. Cool.
Fantastic.
Dreaming of the fall coming up.
The fall. Yeah, I'm excited for fall too. Joe, do you want to just, give a little bit of background on yourself for listeners? I mean, they don't know a whole lot about us yet. It's just, episode 4. We brought you on for some fun, some serious conversation, and there's a couple things that you are kind of an expert in. We talked about that, but what do you like to do? Hobbies,
Well, I am everything outdoors. I'm a traveling hunter, fisherman, trapper.
Awesome.
Do everything outside when I'm at work or at home. I dream about outside. That's pretty much what's on my mind all the time.
Cool.
Nice.
I mean, I wish that I could dream about outside that much, but I'm definitely not as committed as you are.
Yeah.
I dreamed about the outdoors so much that me and a friend started a kayaking club called Josh and Joe's Magical Kayaking Adventures.
That sounds amazing.
Where we take private parties out on kayaking adventures, say in the Boundary Waters or on river trips, and
Awesome.
Fantastic.
basically it.
Cool. So awesome, Joe. Jordan, how was your week?
Week has been good. Kids have been the kids. If you don't have kids, what that means is kids can just be crazy.
They destroy things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Your life.
Yeah. If this is the first,
No,
this is the first episode you're tuning into, I think it was a couple weeks ago or last week, they, lit some paper on fire inside the house while I was outside. So that was fun. So just general mayhem and whininess. And they've been extra whiny this week, but it's okay. It's okay.
I hear it. I hear the whininess in my own kids frequently. I can't complain though. Liz does a bang up job as mom. And in my situation, I'm not the one at home most of the time. So I don't get the worst of the worst sometimes. So
yeah. It's fun experiencing that now as a stay-at-home dad.
Right. Yeah. It's a completely different world almost sometimes. But yeah. So some cool things, this week for me, all sorts of, fun stuff with the garden, picking a lot of stuff out of it. We talked last week a little bit, I think it was, on self-sustainability.
Yeah.
And the garden. And so we're getting a ton of stuff out of there right now. So that's always fun. But then comes the extra work of having to process that.
Right.
Freezing things. And
so how much have you gotten out of your garden?
I mean, we've been trying to just eat most of it.
Okay.
Right now, as much as we can. So at the end of the week, anything left over, we just freeze. So
gotcha.
We've only got, 5 quarts of beans in the freezer.
Okay. I was going to say, are you burned out on anything yet?
Not really. We're going to get there fast on tomatoes because the tomatoes are coming in now. And when they start coming, they never end.
Yeah.
But it's still fun.
If you're burned out on tomatoes, I will not take them. But if you ever get burned out on your on your jalapenos, I will take them.
Okay. Haven't canned any jalapenos yet. And if you're wondering what those are out there, really it's pickled beans, green beans with jalapenos in it. And so it's kind of a spicy pickled bean. They're really good, actually.
They're amazing.
So it's not just Joe saying jalapeno weird.
No, it's not. It's not.
I pronounce everything correctly. It's Ryan who pronounces stuff weird.
Well, that's true. I do.
Like Hornady.
Well, okay, fine. You're going to have to explain the context of that. I'm not going to because I don't like to drag myself through the mud. believe it or not. So if you're going to talk about it, go for it. You can tell the story.
So I don't remember what the exact conversation was, but we were talking about doing Western hunts or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you were going to use Hornady bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to stop you and wait, what'd you say?
On the spot correction.
On the spot correction. And
Right.
that's not the only word that it's pronounced Hornady, by the way. That's not
Right,
the only
but-
thing that I've had to.
Brand of ammunition
Yes.
is what we're talking about. And I think most of you out there can probably relate to my feelings that both of these individuals are total jerks at the moment. And so we're going to move on.
Say anything.
It doesn't matter. I know what you were thinking.
Guess what I'm cutting? That.
No, you're not. Nope. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we need to really delve that deep into it.
That's
but,
another episode. Word
yeah, we can do-
pronunciation.
Right, it is. Yeah,
You'll hear about
that'll
that
be a fun
in
one.
future episodes.
Yeah. So if you guys want to email some words of encouragement to me specifically for having to deal with the two individuals that we're dealing with today, you certainly can do that. philosophyotc@gmail.com. And if you want to email me to insult me, that's fine too. I can take it.
What's the email?
philosophyotc@gmail.com. And Joe, you're not allowed to email insults.
I will create a fake email account. Forget that I said that.
All right. So, okay. So, speaking of insults, we're going to start getting to our topics here. And I think at least one of you here might take this personally, but this is not meant to be a personal insult. Okay. So, another thing with kids, Jordan, that you know, there's certain TV shows that come up a lot.
Yeah, I can think of like a whole bunch that are great.
A whole bunch that are great. There's a whole bunch that kids really like that just seem to suck. And it's like, why do we have to watch this over and over and over again?
Yep.
And gets kind of ridiculous, but you tend to watch the same things over and over again.
You do. Yeah.
Which is fine, whatever. There's a point where you get over the hump and it's like, okay, that was terrible, but now it's just normal. It's part of my life. I'm going to just deal with it.
I've accepted this.
Right. And so one of the shows out there that is supposedly a kid's show, I think is one of the worst. My kids aren't going to watch this show. It's just not going to happen in my house because I hate it with a passion. Not just hate it for being an annoying kid show, but I just hate it in general. And that show is SpongeBob. And so first topic tonight that I want to bring up, because I know this is a special spot in your heart, Joe, is SpongeBob. And I think that SpongeBob is a dumb show. And I don't think that it's worth watching, especially for kids. So I'm sorry to everyone who I've insulted. You know, that's what we have the email for, so you can tell me why I'm wrong. But tonight, we brought on Joe specifically to jump in on this subject because he is a SpongeBob fanatic, lifer, however you want to call it. He thinks it's great, but I don't see why. So Joe, here's the deal. You can talk to the world right now and prove me wrong that SpongeBob is actually a good show when I think it's junk.
So I will throw this out there right now. I have probably not watched a SpongeBob episode in about 2 years now.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Other than with niece and nephew kind of a thing?
2 weekends ago, I'm the world's greatest uncle. So,
well, sure.
I got stuck babysitting.
If you want to debate that, all the uncles out there, think you're the world's greatest.
I'm writing in.
Send us an email. No, go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
I got stuck with 4 out of 5 of my nieces and nephews, ranging from ages 3 to, I think Esme's 7 now. And what better than we just got done playing outside for a couple hours and they were all tired drinking up. So I said, oh, let's just have some quiet time and watch some TV. What was on TV? SpongeBob.
Sure.
And I know one of my sister-in-laws, she does not enjoy SpongeBob either. So the only form of social media that I have is Snapchat.
Okay.
So I took a Snapchat of the 4 of them watching the SpongeBob theme song, and they were all singing along, so they obviously love it.
Sure.
And I sent it to them.
Sure.
Fantastic.
That's fair. I mean, so from the context of me saying it's the worst show, maybe not the worst show, but it's definitely up there, I think. Joe, why is it a good show? Why is it entertaining, and why is it like could a good show for kids?
Well, for me, and I know my dad agrees with this, we were raised on watching Bugs Bunny cartoons
Okay.
where you just kind of sit back, nothing else is on your mind. You just kind of watch the show, you laugh, you giggle every once in a while.
Mhm.
I watch kid shows with my nieces and nephews nowadays, and everything has to be about learning.
Okay.
Just let the kids be kids. Let them sit back, laugh at something.
So I'll be honest, I didn't expect that kind of an argument to come up, and it's a decent argument to a
Pressure's
degree.
on.
It really is. So the whole idea of this podcast is we can have a discussion
Yeah.
and find some truth and maybe still disagree, but find something you can maybe agree on. So
Yeah.
your statement of saying, you know what, at the end of the day, does everything have to be about learning?
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe there is some value in just total like random enjoyment at something that's really silly. So
Yeah.
so I'll give you that. I can jump on that train maybe, but I'm still not going to jump on SpongeBob being the show that fills that niche for me personally. Jordan,
Yeah.
you've been quiet for a little bit. I mean, we've been talking about
Right.
this, but
Yeah.
jump in. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I like SpongeBob. I will caveat that though with I prefer the older episodes to the newer ones.
Fair.
And I feel like that goes with most TV shows that I've watched.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they always start off really good and then they kind of peter off. But SpongeBob as a whole, even the newer episodes, they're still pretty funny. And I think they also throw in a lot of content or humor that is definitely for not just the kids. So it's for all those parents out there that are
Okay.
drudging through the day
They
and
need
then they'll catch
SpongeBob.
something. Yeah.
Because there's nothing in adult humor just in the day that's funny without SpongeBob.
Oh, I'm not saying there isn't.
I mean, I'm not saying there isn't either, obviously, because that's the argument I'm making. I'm just saying, I feel like I love certain amounts of stupid humor, but I don't like just stupid humor because there's nothing witty about it.
So you don't like 80s movies?
Well, what movies in the 80s?
The Naked Gun series, Airplane,
I haven't.
where it's just kind of shut your mind off, laugh.
Sure. Well, here's the deal. I'm going to be honest with you guys listening. I am terrible when it comes to any form of pop culture. I don't know names of most actors and actresses, movie names, anything like that.
Preach.
I've watched a very limited amount of movies, so I don't even know what you're talking about, Joe. I'll be honest. So no, I don't watch movies just for whatever. There are a few movies that I would really jump on board with and say, yes, this is a great movie. I can watch this till the day I die, off and on. Braveheart being one of those. So possibility in my family lineage, maybe some sort of connection to William Wallace. I just want to throw that out there. We don't know for sure.
Claim to fame, right?
Mean, we haven't
William
actually.
Wallace descendant. Sitting in the room.
Well, we've tried to, go through our family ancestry, and we're stuck in the English-Scottish border because it moves so often.
Right.
We can't get any for sure information of exactly who our next descendant was because we want to confirm it. You confirm it through church records and things like that.
Right.
Haven't been able to yet. Right. So we're kind of stuck over there. But, I mean, the surname is connected. So just want to say there's also a little bit of family lore that our family has a castle over in Scotland somewhere, or had one, I should say. And I feel like
so we can't go there and record, is what you're saying.
Well, we can't go to the castle until we find it, and then I go take it back. I mean, I'm not declaring war on Scotland. That's not happening.
That's what it sounds
like.
That's
not what I'm doing. But if I had a castle, by all means, I would be trying to get it back.
Well, that's good to know.
Just saying. Okay, we're getting way off of SpongeBob here. I want to bring us back to that just for a little longer.
Okay, well, I'll throw this out there too, since I brought up the 80s movies and stuff.
Okay.
I'm the last person with any knowledge of pop culture.
Other than you, I think there's certain movies, though, that the movies. And movie quotes, man, you guys should listen to this guy with movie quotes. He can just throw them out left and right, and it's the one-liners that you remember.
Yep, if it's anything like Forrest Gump or say like the Naked Gun series or the movie Airplane, it's about it.
I think Forrest Gump's a quality movie.
I
See,
love
there's
that.
one movie I know.
That's a very historical movie. Lots of history knowledge in it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why he
So
likes
much
it.
history knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I want to bring us back to SpongeBob, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this at you. A number of years ago, there was a study and a report done by the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Is that reputable?
Well,
I'm kidding.
Sure. You're basing it off of past discussions of, who fact checks the fact checkers. And so I did my due diligence here.
All right.
And
you did your duty.
Yes. Oh, come on, Joe. I said no poop jokes. Anyways, I did my due diligence and I at least looked a little bit into this. I didn't just take it at face value. And so
Sure.
I'm going to bring up my point, but then I'm
Okay.
going to bring up a side point that argues against myself a little bit, just to be fair.
Sounds good.
So they did this study, and 4-year-olds who watched 9 minutes of SpongeBob SquarePants performed significantly worse in mental function tests than those who watched educational television, quote unquote. However, and then this article is going on to say, however, those who watched these PBS shows described being, quote, so bored my eyes hurt real bad, unquote. So there's that. But so this study basically came out and said these kids who watched SpongeBob actually scored lower on these cognitive and mental exercises than the kids who watched other types of TV shows. So
how many kids did they test?
That's a great question. And I believe it was only like 60.
Yeah, it's a pretty small pool.
Pretty small pool. Yep, that was one of the things I was going to bring up. But I think there is some validity to it because the other thing I was going to bring up with it wasn't so much SpongeBob was the actual TV show that was selected.
Sure.
Okay. I bring this up as an example. This still is a ding against SpongeBob for me, even though it doesn't necessarily only apply to SpongeBob.
Sure.
That was the one that was brought up. And the idea is that the issue is not so much necessarily with SpongeBob itself, but it was more along the lines of the speed of the program. And what they mean by that is not so much like flashing lights and things like that, but how long were the different scenes on average before they moved from one topic to the next and to the next topic kind of a thing. And so the scenes in SpongeBob were considered rapid. So this study said something like they averaged 11 seconds per scene before it switched to another scene. Whereas most other TV shows in that age group would average something twice that before it would switch to another scene. And then like Mr. Rogers, which I think has an argument of being a great kids show, was even longer than that. And so they would reference it as almost seeming like slow motion compared to SpongeBob.
Right.
And so I think there probably is truth to the faster paced movement of information in SpongeBob.
Yeah.
That it would probably have some truth to it. But there are those, issues with the study that could bring up some questionability.
Sure.
So my question for that study is, were they taking just random kids or did they have like kids that their parents make the TV the babysitter? Because that would definitely affect.
Sure. I think it was more so randomized, but I think it would be even towards the opposite of what you're getting at, because one criticism of the study was they took kids from mostly affluent homes. And so they thought that it was basically biased against a normal, average, everyday, quote unquote, individual, which I don't know if that would affect. And I think it would go to the opposite of the point you're trying to make of. And that's not to say that that depending on your income level or class or something like that it's an indicator of how long you let your kids watch TV. But there might be some instances or data that would suggest that certain demographics will have their kids in front of an iPad or a screen more often,
right? More screen time,
more often than not. So I don't think that would apply to this specific study. but it's a good question. It's fair.
Yeah. When did you say that study was done again?
I think that was back in like 2010.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see if there was anything further done on it.
Right.
Obviously, Nickelodeon was not happy with the study.
I'm sure not.
I'm sure
But
not.
one interesting thing that came out of it, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to take too long on SpongeBob because I don't like SpongeBob for one. But so one thing that the network should have been happy about with this study essentially is that they measured also how long children could wait to eat a snack after watching programs.
Sure.
And children who watched SpongeBob waited an average of only 2.5 minutes before really wanting some sort of a snack like fruit by the foot or something. Like they just wanted something after 2.5 minutes. Whereas with other shows, children averaged 4 minutes before they really wanted a snack.
Huh.
And so I think part of that comes into, I bet Nickelodeon does some pretty good marketing for certain snacks. And so, at least the network could feel like, yep, we're doing our job with getting kids to eat junk food.
Yeah.
So
SpongeBob fruit snacks.
SpongeBob fruit snacks.
Delicious.
Absolutely. So I think we can all agree that SpongeBob is just terrible. I think we came to that conclusion.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay. So send us, what you guys think. Be part of this discussion. We want you to join in. What do you think? SpongeBob, bad, good, in between, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let us know for sure. Because, we've all got different opinions on it, and that's okay. Speaking of SpongeBob, one of your comments here, Joe, that you had talked about when you brought up your duty joke when we were having that discussion. And here's another reason why we brought you on. So you talked about you love the outdoors, all that sort of stuff. When you talk about the outdoors, and let's say you're camping somewhere, you're hiking somewhere, you're in the boundary waters, something like that, for a lot of people who haven't camped or gone out hiking or things like that and spent time in the wilderness, one of the big things that I think is a big turnoff to that is like, where are you supposed to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
For real. If you're out there for days,
Yeah.
what are you doing? There's no bathrooms, right? So it can be a little intimidating, and that shouldn't stop people from getting out and exploring, right?
Definitely
And experiencing some of that. So Joe, you've done a lot of this for you, and I want you to keep this. Remember, we're pretty relaxed, family friendly type podcast, but we might get a little racy at times with things, but just keep it. Don't get graphic. That's all I ask, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to hear any like times where you had diarrhea when you're out in the wild, something like that. We don't want to go there.
I will attempt to limit myself to one story.
One story. Okay,
Yes.
that's fair. But what we want to know
hilarious.
for people who are listening, who maybe that might be the biggest turnoff to getting out, getting into nature, camping for a weekend, whatever.
Or maybe
Where
more so than that though, like maybe doing something a little more adventurous than just like, oh well, we're gonna go to head to the campground.
Sure. Right. Or, out taking a mountain hike.
Right. Yeah.
Or something
Getting out.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Into some real wild
Right.
situations.
Right. So any of those, all of the above, where is the restroom, the bathroom, the toilet, whatever you want to call it? Where is that when you're out in the wild? How does that look? What do you do?
So first off, if you're at like a campground, say rural Minnesota, they all got their own bathrooms, outhouses, whatnot.
Okay. So that's checking the list right there. You don't have to worry about it if you're at a campground. Perfect.
And then one neat trick, like my dad hand built his cabin by himself, log by log. He also made an outhouse.
Okay.
And one cool thing about an outhouse, there is a rule that if you get a bucket of ashes from a fire pit, one poop equals one scoop.
Okay.
You do your business in the porta potty. You take a scoop of ashes, pour it on top. Doesn't stink.
So at like a public campground, do they have that sort of thing, or is that just kind of they have some sort of chemical type thing that is supposed to help with that?
I tend to stay away from public campgrounds.
Okay.
Although I used to work at one, I have yet to see that other than my dad doing it.
Okay.
So, but I think that's like a cool trick somebody could potentially take along with them if they were going to do any kind of hiking or anything like that.
Sure.
I mean, if you've got a fire, I don't know, why not?
Sure. But so we've got the campground situation to take care of. There's probably some sort of a porta potty or an outhouse there, or if you are renting a cabin that's got an outhouse or something
Or a
like that,
full-blown bathroom.
full-blown bathroom,
Yeah.
you know. And I bring up the outhouse because it's more rustic and people are probably like, ew, whatever. But it doesn't have to be ew, right?
Right.
That's kind of what you're saying is
As long as you're a responsible adult when it comes
Sure.
to going
clean
number
up
two out
after
there.
yourself.
Exactly.
Yep.
Don't make it look like a high school bathroom.
So we've gotten, through the stages here. Now let's say you talked about your magical kayaking adventure. You're out in
Yes.
the boundary waters.
Yeah.
There aren't, outhouses out there.
You have obviously never been in the boundary waters, have you?
I have not.
So
Wow, that was really judgy, Joe.
yeah, it was. 'Cause how many times have I invited you?
I know, but I couldn't. Man, all right.
Life
So
obligations.
every rustic campsite in the boundary waters, like away from shore, has a latrine.
They do.
Yes.
Interesting.
All right.
So there's like a little path that you can follow, and you walk out to the middle of the woods, nowhere near the water, and you let her buck.
Okay.
But I have yet to see someone do the ash trick there.
Okay.
Interesting.
Fair enough.
You should be the first. Start a trend, Joe.
As for me, I like to keep things simple, and I love the experience of not using the latrine when I go up there.
Okay. What about the experience? What do you love about it?
For me, it's like a peaceful thing, kind of becoming one with nature
Okay.
type thing. I grew up in the woods. There was never an outhouse or a latrine out there, so I always have what I call my poop trowel. I carry a backpack wherever I go. I have my trowel. I have my toilet paper. I dig a hole.
Nice.
Sure.
So the reason I dig a hole, let's see. Here's my one story.
Okay. All right. Hang on, everyone.
Prepared.
This is going to be, we are going to limit it to one story, but prepare yourselves because this is an expert of going to the bathroom in the woods who's about to give you an inside scoop. Pun intended. All right. Go ahead.
So it was middle of winter. I really had to go. It was an emergency. It was one of those photo finish moments. I did not have time to dig a hole, nor was I able to because there was 2 or 3 feet of snow. So I pull up to my dad's cabin in the winter, and I grab my ready to go toilet paper in my truck. I dash out to the woods, and I let her buck. Wasn't able to bury it, nothing like that. That's, didn't use my toilet paper, didn't have anywhere to put it, so I buried it underneath the snow,
Okay.
out of sight, out of mind.
Okay.
That spring, a robin built a nest on my dad's cabin right above the doorway.
Huh.
Out of anything it could have used by the cabin in the woods, pine needles, leaves, grass, it grabbed my dirty toilet paper
Awesome.
and used it in its nest.
How'd your dad feel about that?
He was not happy.
Yeah, I bet he wasn't.
It was hilarious, but he was not happy. And for me, it's different because it was my work, but
Sure.
if it's not your work, it's disgusting.
It was a masterpiece for you.
Exactly.
It was like the purest form of being one with nature.
It was his Mona Lisa.
Exactly.
Ever since that moment, I've become an advocate for bury it.
Okay.
That's
fair.
So,
Jinx. Gotcha.
What I recommend is digging a hole, burying it, go on, lift up a rock, go there, put the rock back over it.
Okay.
With your toilet paper, if it's the biodegradable stuff, bury it with it. If not, what I do is I carry a little lighter.
Burn it.
Okay.
Obviously, be responsible when you do it, but you burn it, it's gone.
Okay.
And
So
toilet paper just kind of, it's gone.
sure. So let's take this to, these are situations where you've got stuff available. If you don't have, a latrine or an outhouse, you've got toilet paper at least, right? And so these are situations where it's kind of weird probably to start with, but once you do it, in that situation, literally nobody's around you out there, right? You're on your own.
Where I go, there is nobody.
There's nobody, right? So let's bring that one last step further, okay? Let's move this into like a survival aspect a little bit because we like to talk about that stuff. You never know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So let's say you get stranded somewhere, you're in the middle of the woods, and obviously you're still going to have to go to the bathroom. You don't have a roll of toilet paper with you, right? You're not prepared for that. What's a person do that is still at least keeping some sort of like self-decency and you don't feel like you're just making a mess of yourself and your life? back in the day, they didn't have toilet paper either. So what do you suggest that's comfortable and is a way to just, make the best of a worse, like terrible situation?
Obviously, it all depends on where you are when
Okay.
the grid goes down, so to speak.
Okay.
What I've done is I've used big leaves. Obviously, don't use poison ivy or something like
That's
that.
great idea.
That'd be
Mm.
terrible.
Make sure you can identify poison ivy.
I
Pro
think
tip.
that's yes.
I've never done this, but I guess you could walk into a lake or river with your pants off and just kind of clean yourself up that way, like a baby wipe.
Okay.
That'd work.
Those are my
Mhm.
top
It'd be a
two
little
things.
chilly depending on the time of year.
So you'd
Yeah.
focus on the leaf. What about moss? If you could find some sort of really good moss, good, bad?
I suppose you could.
Pine needles.
I would not recommend that.
Nice firm pine bough.
Yeah. No thanks.
When there's a nice fluffy snow, I've used fluffy snow for toilet paper. It
Interesting.
gets a little chilly, but you feel clean.
I would be less scared about the coldness of it than I would be about.
You warm up quick.
Well, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about it's snow and it's just it melting, and I'm using my hand. There's no layer. There's no barrier between the
Sure.
snow and my hand.
Big handful of snow. Pack it down.
So you make a snowball.
I do.
So you're saying wipe with a snowball.
Yes.
Interesting. This winter, I'll try it.
Well, I'm not. I'm just gonna try it only if I need to.
Wow, not adventurous at all.
Well, I figure I'm gonna figure it out if I need to. That's fair, isn't it? All right.
And I'll
then
just
Ryan's
throw this out there. I'm not out there in the woods going number 2 for fun. I'm out in the woods all the time on my trap line or hunting or whatever.
And if it needs to happen,
when nature
needs to
calls.
happen.
When,
Right.
when I'm walking on my trap line, all of a sudden you feel that you
Sure.
gotta go.
Sure. All right. So we got just a couple more things coming up. We are going to take a quick break for our second sponsor for this episode. Here we go.
So today's podcast is brought to you by Josh and Joe's Magical Kayaking Adventures, hosting private kayaking tours in the Boundary Waters and in central and northern Minnesota. What we do is we just take you down on a kayaking adventure, and that's about it. We enjoy nature and teach you about nature.
All right. Welcome back. So we just finished up conversation on restroom in the wild,
Yeah.
and it was a sticky situation. But we got through it. So
I did my duty.
you did your duty. You gave us the inside scoop on a stinky subject.
On a crappy subject.
Crappy subject. All right. Enough puns. All right. So when we talk about those, we talked a little bit about that last worst case scenario.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And I feel like sometimes we tend to go into the doom and gloom a lot anymore as a culture.
For sure.
Everything is always going to be the worst,
Yep.
Nothing will ever be the same again. Things like that. But it brings me to a point where I've been thinking a lot about, at the end of the day, are people that much different? And it really brings me to the core question of, is the world more dangerous than it used to be? Because I think a lot of people would say, yeah, it's terrible out there. Have you seen the things that are happening?
Right.
I don't know if I buy it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it is more dangerous. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, one thing I think we have to maybe set first as well is, so we say used to be, are we talking about like when we were kids? So like in the 90s
Fair.
and early 2000s? So
I mean,
20-ish years ago? Or are
open
we
for
talking?
interpretation.
Okay.
But I think maybe a couple ideas we could talk about with that. Maybe it's in the last in our lifetime. So I mean,
So we
we're
say
in our
like 20-ish
30s.
years
So
ago?
yeah, 20 to 30 years ago. Or you could even take it just historically in general at any point in time.
Sure.
Are
Just
we
as-
more dangerous? Because
Right.
the answer changes, right? And I think that's what
Yeah.
we're getting at based off when you're comparing it to.
Right.
But we could compare it to pretty much any of those times, and I think have that discussion. But what do you think? So let's say the past 20 to 30 years.
Sure. Since when we were kids. I don't know. It's hard. I think the thing that you see is you just see a lot more of the bad because of things like social media, and then
Mhm.
the fact that news in general is a lot quicker. everything happens a lot faster than it used to. You know, if it had to get printed in a paper or, you know, it was like, oh, it's at the news at 10 or whatever,
Mhm.
you know, it's not a constant 24-hour information, you know,
Right.
overload. So I feel like it definitely seems worse, but is it really? I don't know.
Yeah, I think part of it is because, like you said, we've got that. It's
Hmm.
just that's all we see, right?
Yeah.
So, but is it actually more dangerous, Joe? What do you think?
I would say it depends on where you're at and what. See, when you think of is the world more dangerous, I think of two things. I think of, say, like what's going down in Minneapolis right now. I
Mm,
have yet to meet someone or talk to someone who says, "Yeah, I'll go to Minneapolis."
Okay.
When for me, like, is the world more dangerous? I'm thinking of like a conservation type thing, and going elk hunting in western Wyoming where there's an abundance of grizzly bears, where
mm.
people go shooting elk, and 10 years ago, no one ever saw a grizzly bear, but now you shoot your elk and there's three grizzly bears ready to pounce on your elk.
Huh.
Sure.
So I'm thinking like two ways.
You
Sure.
so it could be, yeah, you're talking the social aspect with people, and you're talking certain pockets of nature that are maybe more dangerous than
Interesting.
they had
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
So you could, I guess, I didn't think that question could be as broad,
Yeah.
maybe,
I didn't
but
either, but that's a good point and
But when I think of
something
the
else to think
when
about.
I think of the world being more dangerous than today, 10 years ago there was a lot of people that would leave their vehicles unlocked in town,
Mhm.
or they would leave their car running in the winter. You don't see that nowadays.
Sure,
So I think that would speak volumes of
sure.
trying to get to an answer.
But I think part of what I wonder is, and kind of what Jordan was getting at, has that been sensationalized to the point that we are all believing it's more dangerous than it is?
Right. Like, oh, because you left your car running when it's 30 below, someone's definitely gonna
Right, because it
come
happened
jack it.
once,
Right.
is it more likely to happen or not? And I don't know. I
Yeah.
think too, I wonder, part of me thinks it is more dangerous, especially for our kids from like a sex trafficking
Sure.
side of it. I think
Hmm.
it is. But then at the same time, when we didn't know of what was going on,
Yeah.
our kids were probably taken advantage of all the time and nobody knew about it.
Right. Our
I don't
kids
know.
just being kids in general in the past.
Right. Our kids as a society is what I'm
Yes.
referring
Yeah.
to. But it's a weird question to ponder
Yeah.
because it definitely feels like it's not as safe. I think we
Yeah.
have that feeling, but do we self perpetuate that?
I think we do, at least to a certain degree. So,
Explain.
like the leaving your keys in your car and stuff like that. I mean, I live out pretty much in the middle of nowhere by a lot of people's standards, right? And I mean, I lock my door at night,
Yeah,
and it's like, why? We have like 5 or 6 people that live on this road, and we're all, you know, not close to each other. There's zero reason to lock my door, really, like realistically.
sure.
So, why do I do it? Well, I just do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll say you get someone driving around on a meth bender and they happen to go in the ditch by your house.
Well,
They're on meth. You don't know what's going to
well,
happen.
exactly, and
They
that's why.
probably don't either.
All
It's
right.
very
Well, that's
true.
why, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's yeah, it's an interesting topic. I'm not sure that we can actually come to any sort of conclusion, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys think.
yeah,
Like email us, let us know because I think that's something we could even delve into a little bit more, but
yeah,
just wanted to start the conversation of, is the world more dangerous than it used to be? If it is, why? If it's not, why? And here's the other thing is, I don't think anything happens today. We use different tools to do these things,
mhm.
but I don't think there's anything bad that happens today that didn't happen in the past.
I agree
We
with
just
that.
do it differently in
Yeah,
different ways. And
yep,
so all that was happening, it just wasn't as obvious because I agree, we didn't have the media
right,
that was able to show it to us all the time.
right,
So is it, I don't know if it's any more dangerous. I don't.
yeah, yeah, and maybe, yeah, since we're just kind of starting this conversation, maybe we'll come back to this in a couple weeks
Mhm.
and really dive more into this.
Yeah. And I think too,
But
if
just to
we,
get some responses back from y'all.
exactly. That's what I was thinking because we can, help us out with these discussions. We want to have these discussions with you. And so if we can get those responses that Jordan's talking about, we can kind of take this a couple different directions, maybe
Yeah.
go from there.
Yeah. And talk to your family or friends that would be, willing to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And get, several opinions on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to that. I think that's one of the coolest things we can do is have a discussion with you guys.
Absolutely.
And so take advantage of it, be part of this podcast with us. But with that,
yeah. So I've got one last thing here, and it does kind of relate to nature. So here in Minnesota, ticks, in the spring and early summer can get pretty bad. And with that, there's different kinds of ticks. There's deer ticks and just normal wood ticks. And obviously deer ticks carry Lyme disease, which is no fun. And a lot of people have heard of that.
It's increasing.
It
I
is.
mean, more and more
Yeah.
everywhere. So,
but with that, there is another kind of tick that is maybe less known, and it's called the Lone Star tick. It goes by some other names as well that I can't recall offhand. But if it bites you, it can give you I guess it's a disease, and it's called alpha-gal syndrome. And in short, what that does is it makes it so you can't eat red meat.
That would suck.
It would. So my question is, would you rather get Lyme disease or alpha-gal syndrome?
Joe, why don't you take this one? Since you're the person who has experienced
I
some of this.
want to know what Ryan has to say too. But yeah, definitely start us off, Joe.
So it was like 2016 or 2017. I can't remember. Maybe it was even 2018. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was late summer. I was helping my uncle out with a lot of field work, planting a lot of trees. I was building deer stands, getting ready for trapping season. All of a sudden, there's this 1 week where I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. I felt like I gained a lot of weight, but I was actually skinnier than what I was. So my uncle was feeling the same way. So he went to the doctor and got a blood test, and it turns out that he had Lyme disease and hay fever. So
double whammy.
So then I started going, uh-oh. And at the time, I didn't have insurance.
Fantastic.
So I went to the doctor and I said, hey, this is what's going on. I don't have insurance, by the way, so I don't really need all the blood tests and stuff. Just tell me your opinion. And the doctors, who was very good and had a lot of experience with Lyme disease, he said, you got it.
Interesting.
So I caught it early. So he said, don't eat bread and don't eat sugar.
Okay.
For so long, take some amoxicillin. And I did that, and probably within 2 months,
you were good to go.
I was up and good to go.
They were pretty aggressive though with the treatment, right? Because it was kind of an idea. It's early. We're gonna knock it out and take care of it as early as possible.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Huh.
And there's a number of different strategies on Lyme's thing, I think. But one of the big things from what I have heard is that catching it early. That is one of the key things in taking care of knocking that out. But so you've had Lyme's. So with this question, I mean, what do you think? Would you rather get Lyme's?
Well, and also, maybe I'm wrong here, but isn't it a lifelong also? It can potentially flare up again.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think
I should have done more research.
That's
okay. I thought it was. Maybe not, or maybe it's if you don't catch it soon enough.
It's definitely a chronic thing though.
It can be recurring.
I think that the idea of knocking out early is you have a better shot of knocking it out.
Sure.
And once it's
less.
Yeah. I would think.
The only thing I can say with like me supposedly having it, I didn't get a blood test or anything like that.
Sure.
I would say like I'm more apt to be out of breath on occasion.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'm older than I was.
That's true.
So, yeah. Interesting.
Hitting the 30s just
yeah, 30 is a tough age.
All downhill from here.
That's right. But so then, Joe, I want to get a straight answer out of you now. Which would you rather have, Lyme's or this whatever disease
alpha-gal syndrome,
where you can't eat red meat? Which is it?
Lyme's disease all the way.
You'd rather have Lyme's?
Yep.
Okay.
Wow.
Especially in my occurrence, I caught it early. I only had to deal with it for a month or two.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
I hunt a lot. My entire freezer's full of red meat.
Yeah.
It'd be tough for you to give up. That's fair.
I basically have to give up my lifestyle.
Sure.
I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to hunt anymore because I'm not a trophy hunter. I'm a meat hunter.
Sure.
So
Rare breed.
Indeed.
But all right. So Jordan, you're waiting on my answer?
I'm waiting on you.
Yeah. I didn't think about it a ton,
Good.
but I really do feel like I've seen and heard some people who limes really hit them hard,
Right.
and they're like, I mean, they can't walk anymore. They're in
Yeah.
a wheelchair. Joe, you were super fortunate, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Without being able to know exactly how it would play out for me,
Yeah.
I'd give up the red meat. I
You'd go
think.
alpha gal, huh?
I'd give up the red meat. Yep.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. I feel
Very
like
that would mean no tacos.
it would mean no tacos with beef.
Yeah, I was gonna say turkey.
Chicken.
Oh, true.
Chicken, yeah.
Chicken tacos.
Mm.
No tacos with cheese in them.
Why?
I think you can have cheese.
I'm just bringing up an argument
Oh.
from episode 1. Yes,
So
Yeah,
confused.
yes, there is cheese in tacos.
Well,
It's just like putting Tabasco sauce
Yeah,
on pizza.
you
You put
were-
whatever you want in there.
you were pretty
Mm.
salty about that. when
Yeah,
you heard
yes,
that.
yes, I was.
That's fair. Now that all right, Jordan, now that we've answered, I want to hear your answer.
Yeah, man, I've gone back and forth. I've kind of wrestled with it. I think the problem is that you don't know exactly how Lyme disease is going to affect you.
Yep.
But I think I'd still roll the dice and go with Lyme disease.
Really?
I don't think I could give up red meat
Wow.
if I had the choice. Obviously, if I got bit by a Lone Star tick and I, had to give up red meat, I'd obviously give it up.
Okay.
But I think also after doing just 2 seconds of scanning the Mayo Clinic's, document or overview of
Yep.
alpha gal syndrome, I think it can affect you differently. So sometimes, yeah, it's like full blown like anaphylactic shock type stuff.
Sure.
Other times it might be like hives, varying degrees of how allergic you become to
That's fair.
it. But
That's
I
fair.
don't know. I'd rather roll the dice with Lyme disease, I think.
I don't know, man. I think that
It's risky.
it's risky. It's
and
tough.
both of them are
I
terrible.
don't want to give up a hamburger. I get it, right?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite foods of all time. But
Yeah.
I think health is a good thing.
You're not
So,
wrong. You're not
but-
wrong.
Cool. Well, if you're listening, let us know. We want to hear all of your opinions on this. And yeah, looking forward to next week. What do we got? Lots of stuff coming up.
Tons of stuff. Surprises.
Surprises, all sorts of things coming in as far as, different guests, things like that.
Yes.
So stay tuned. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We got some big plans for you guys. Well, that was awesome. Thanks for being here, Joe, giving us your expertise on SpongeBob and using the restroom in the wild and your experience with limes.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be back. We'll bring him
I
back.
hope so.
Hear more from the outdoor guy, Joe.
Bye.
Bye.